Little fanboy here. One of my favorite broadcasters of all time. Been watching him for many, many years, and unabashedly look up to him. It is Max Kellerman of ESPN. What's up, Max?
Damn, that's an intro.
I'll tell you what, man. I have been watching you for years. I remember when you were doing like late night boxing breakdowns 10 years ago, and I just have really rooted for you. I see all your prep and stuff comes through, and super articulate. And so I'll stop all that stuff. Thank you for joining us. What did you make of the Denver Nuggets yesterday? Michael Porter Jr. going absolutely nuts, and the Nuggets' trajectory in general.
Well, Porter really is the X factor, and in that draft, the whole thing was if he can stay healthy, they really have something. And they needed that wing player. That wing scoring is really what, when you look at that team, look, Jamal Murray is good and getting better, but he's nowhere near like the best player on a championship team, right? And Jokic is someone maybe who could be. He's really good when he's at his best. But the real formula, as much as the league has changed, you need a stretch four and everything runs through the point guard. The best teams have two-way wings, but certainly at least scoring wings. And if in a funky season like this, where you get the sense that if there's going to be deviation from the mean, from the norm, it'll happen in this kind of season, Porter is a real X factor for Denver.
I love it, and we're joined by ESPN's Max Kellerman. Max, thank you for joining us, buddy. When you look at everything that's going on in sports right now, obviously we're living in different times. You look at baseball and all these cases popping up and series being suspended. And what's your thought here about everything that's going on? Now, basketball's got the bubble, but football's about to be really cranking up here with football and baseball and how they're handling this situation.
There will be very little football this year, if any. I give it a 0% chance to finish their season. Baseball, I think, is very low odds that they finish their season. And actually, it's a rare instance where I blame the players' union, although they don't look at the owners and the commissioners' good faith partners or negotiators even, I'm sure, because they've been lied to and cheated through the years, through the decades. But in this case, either you accept a bubble format where you're not going to see your family for a couple months except on FaceTime or whatever, or you really can't play the season, not in the middle of a global pandemic where there's no vaccination. Like, forget about vaccine. Like, they discovered one today, and it worked, and it passed all the clinical trials. To scale it up so you get enough doses for a vaccination is going to take some time. So that doesn't exist right now. And so the only real way you can handle it is by contact tracing, meaning you find out where it is. Let's locate the virus. Oh, it's over here. Now let's isolate it so it can't spread. This guy got it. He hung out in the weight room with that guy, and okay, these three guys are quarantined. 2 weeks later, good, virus. That's how you crush the curve. But you cannot do it in a sport where there are 50-plus people on a roster, plus support staff. You're talking about 100 people, times 32. 3,200 people, and it's decentralized. It's an unserious approach to having a season. The NBA had the advantage of having relatively few people on a roster, having their season almost over where they could actually have their cake and eat it too. Like, they could finish they could play enough regular season games to get the local TV money to kick in and then have their playoffs. And they were close enough to the championship and also had good enough rapport between the players and the owners and the commissioner. They trusted each other enough to get this thing done. That didn't happen in baseball. It's not happening in football. Guys, I know I'm rambling, but if I were running the NFL, I would approach the players with something like, guys, there are going to be 4 bubbles, 2 for the AFC, 2 for the NFC in towns near each other. NFC teams only playing NFC teams, AFC teams, AFC teams. We're going to cut the season in half, 8 games. You are going to have to be away from your family for 10 weeks. Then you can go see them. We'll regroup for the playoffs. And you'll be paid your prorated salary. We can either do that or let's not even try because it's not going to work. But there was nothing like that. They're so greedy. It's like, no, we want it just to be as it always is. We want to make just as much money as well. We're already losing the live gate. Let's try to make that up on the TV side. And that kind of thinking will lead, I think, certainly to an NFL season that does not get finished. And I also have my doubts about Major League Baseball. We've already seen several major outbreaks and many cancellations of games.
Yeah, and we're just in our second week of baseball, and we're going through that. In football, you're talking 53 guys on an active roster, practice squads, coaching staffs, trainers. So let's just be conservative and say 100 guys to worry about per NFL team. You're talking about thousands of people here. But my question is, Max, on the heels of everything that you just said, there are really, really smart people running the National Football League. How could they, again, based off what you just said, talk themselves into the idea that this is going to work?
Well, number one, and you never go into a bar and discuss politics or religion because they're divisive. But I never thought a pandemic would be politicized. But it has been. And I think leadership plays a big role because when people in leadership positions in an election year are telling you, no, we can open back up, everything get back to normal, I think it has an effect even on the titans of industry. And I think it's also a mistake to just assume, well, these are very smart people, otherwise how did they make their fortunes? So they wouldn't be this foolish. Yes, people are overly motivated by their own short-term incentives. And oftentimes that conflicts with the greater long-term interest, right? And so I think that's blinding them. But it's foolish, and I don't see how it can work. And what's a shame is I'm a big Yankees fan. I love baseball. I love baseball on the radio in the summer, guys. What's better than when you're driving around, running errands, whatever you're doing, getting out of town for the weekend, whatever you're doing, you put that baseball game on. Oh, it's so good. and I'm getting a taste of it now. My Yankees are a powerhouse, right? And it's going to get taken away from me because these guys couldn't get it together. And it's a killer. It's a tease. I don't know. Look, it's not responsible probably to play football on this scale in a pandemic, but I'm willing to be a little bit irresponsible. I'm a sports fan, right? But if you want to do that, then you have to actually be serious about the attempt. They're not making a serious attempt, and they will not play football, not for long.
Wow. And we're visiting with Max Kellerman at ESPN. Max, thanks for joining us again, buddy. What'd you make? Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr., what do you make of that?
Roy's a friend of mine, dear friend of mine. Worked with him for years. One of the great privileges and joys of my professional life was sitting next to Roy Jones Jr. and even watching undercard fights before we ever got on air on HBO. Sure. And Mike Tyson, he and I have been watching each other actually for decades, since the 80s, since he was sleeping on Steve Lott's couch on 2nd Avenue, watching me do Max on Boxing on public access in 89, right? And of course he's Mike Tyson. I fought from Brooklyn. I followed him, since he was coming up. So I care about both these guys. I don't want to see them get hurt, right, at their age. But guys, almost no matter what they charge, I'm going to pay it. I'm going to.
That's right.
Roy Jones is fighting Mike Tyson. Are you kidding? Well, they're sparring gloves and headgear, and okay, all right. Someone might get hurt. I know. I know. I'm not saying I'm proud of that impulse. I'm saying I'm going to pay it. I'm going to watch it. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, we're all going to be watching it. I'm not. I don't want to set myself up to be let down, so I'm not going to have great expectations when Tyson hasn't fought in 15 years, and last time he was fighting, he was just a shell of himself. Max, going back to the NBA, when you look at the landscape of the Western Conference here, this is going to unfold rather quickly. We just have about 6 games left of the regular season, and then the NBA playoffs are going to happen. When you look at the Nuggets compared to the likes of the Lakers and Clippers and Houston Rockets, just talk about the Western Conference in general and how you see this thing shaping out.
The Rockets have a real puncher's chance, as they always do, and maybe better than that. And this micro ball revolution of Daryl Morey's is really interesting because when Westbrook stopped shooting the three, and even from the beginning, but especially recently, and even before the break, meaning the break for COVID, Westbrook was really like a 6'1" center. The paint action comes from him off the dribble, and they have just a really interesting team. And I think James Harden has made strides in terms of his playoff performances. But still, I can't get it out of my mind when last seen in the playoffs, he's dribbling the ball out of bounds off his foot in crunch time when they could steal a game at Golden State. He's jumping under Draymond Green's legs looking for a call and missing the shot instead of hitting the shot with the game on the line. And I don't. He has been a choker in the playoffs. When I look at the Lakers and the Clippers, the two LA teams, I see the formula. The great point guard who's also a wing player, really, in LeBron, and the great he can play. He's like a stretch four, but he's also an interior player who can block shots and defend the rim, and in his prime. And in the Clippers, I see two great two-way wings who were just kind of dropped onto a 48-win team last year. You know, they didn't have to reconstruct the whole team. They just swapped out Gallinari and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. And when I look at Denver, for example, I don't see players like that. I think Jokic is great. I think Jamal Murray is good and getting better. And as I said, Porter Jr. is the real X factor for you. And this is a funky season where something like that can happen. Like Denver could go all the way and surprise everybody. But if you're asking me for my prediction, I like the Clippers.
Max Kellerman, great stuff. Getting back into the radio game, the Max Kellerman Show is coming to ESPN Denver 1600, our sister station, on August 17th. Max, just to reset what I said, man, I was a young kid growing up in Schenectady, New York, watching you do your thing and been rooting for you from afar the whole way. Not ashamed to say you inspire the hell out of me, and I really appreciate you coming by, man. Really continue to root for you.
That's very nice of you to say, and a word of advice, aim higher than me. What are you doing? Come on, you have real role models out there.
Have a good one, man.